I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and I've been super busy this week, and I thought it'd be the perfect time to talk about this, and also it was prompted by something I saw on social media. And if you guys don't know, this is like my new one-shot series. It's basically like a less intense video, less structured, just me speaking to a camera with minimal editing. And I enjoy doing these because I can just really talk about things that might not necessarily fit in with general stuff on my channel. But yeah, today I want to talk about why are so many YouTubers exposed as bad people. And that could be bad in terms of like how they treat employees. Like, let's talk about Mr. Beast there. That could be bad in terms of how they pursue personal relationships using their YouTube clout and fame, or Twitch stream clout and fame, to basically pressure people into things they might not want to do, or go after people and pursue them in a way that to most people who aren't, you know, some sort of e-celeb seems bizarre and predatory. And then you have, I guess, just being a terrible person in what you say, someone like Asmongold, right? Like, how do you get to that level? And I'm particularly thinking about what he said about Palestinians. How do you get to that level where you're such a terrible person? Like, do you become a terrible person through content creation and the fame that comes with that for a lot of people? Or does content creation actually draw in terrible people? And that's what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about like my own experience, and also just being thankful I became a content creator a lot later in life, and I became a full-time content creator with a, you know, some sort of audience when I was a lot older, which I think is actually really important, because when we're going to talk about people like Mr. Beast, becoming a millionaire content creator at like 19 years old just sets you up, in my opinion, to be someone who's going to be lacking in the morals department. So I'm not gonna talk about who this is, but it probably comes as no surprise that even on the left-wing side of YouTube, lots of left-wing creators are also bad people for a variety of different reasons. And it also probably doesn't come as a surprise that lots of male feminists, even like more Marxist male feminists, often turns out that they aren't actually feminists. They just pay lip service to it, and in their own life they don't practice what they preach. Now, basically what I saw is a notable leftist content creator. Someone was talking about their experience with them, and it's pretty clear he was using his fame to basically act really like sleazy with women. Like, it's not something I would say he's the most irredeemable piece of shit ever, but apparently it's a pattern, and it's pretty clear this person is using their platform to have some sort of advantage over women and kind of take advantage of them liking him already for his content, right? That's as much as I'll say about that. And when I read it, I was really disappointed, because I like this person's output generally, and I was like, what? Why can't anyone be normal? Like, why is everyone a scumbag? Why does it feel like everyone is just a complete scumbag on this platform? And I think fundamentally, a lot of it is to do with being a YouTuber and a social media creator is a very antisocial job. I want to talk about being antisocial in terms of the American Psycho workout routines that seem to be going viral, and like how much like overly obsessing on your daily routine makes you an antisocial person. But yeah, making content, especially pursuing the goal of becoming big, either for fame or just for people to watch it, often comes with being very antisocial, because this is a passion for a lot of people, including myself, where you can put so many hours into it and you don't get that instant gratification. So iDubbbz actually is an interesting case study of someone who did do bad things as a content creator, but is interesting because he then became older and more self-reflective and seemed to become a better person. So he spoke about what he used to be like, and he said, when I was younger, like early 20s, making these videos about people, like, I just saw it as content, and I just like would stay in my bedroom like up to all hours of the morning, working like these huge shifts trying to get this video out. And as anyone who makes videos can tell you, video editing is a very time consuming thing to do. And if you are overly obsessing on something as well, combined with these work hours and combined with the fact that you actually might have a job as well, you're basically foregoing the hours where you might have social contact with friends, family, do your hobbies and passions, and you're replacing it with something where you're way more isolated. And I want to talk about myself in regards to that and the iDubbbz thing as well, because I have been doing full-time content creation since 2021, and I've been doing YouTube since 2017, late 2017, taking it very seriously probably in early 2019, like regularly uploading consistently and stuff. And I've been feeling this lately that through no real fault of my own, I've been very antisocial this year. And I wouldn't say generally I've been antisocial while doing YouTube, but I got into a bit of a rut basically with my content. I spoke about this before. I was really ill for 2 weeks, and I literally couldn't upload because I couldn't get out of bed. It's the most sick I've ever been, and this is my livelihood, right? So once I was done being ill, I have thrown myself back into doing YouTube, making like 4 videos a week. There were times last year where I'd make 2 videos a week, and because they're performing well, that's all I do. But now, because I've been grinding to get back that momentum, I have basically, like, lots of times on Friday nights, I've been invited to do stuff with my friends, and I just said no. Like, I have to stay in and do it. Because also what's part of being a YouTuber people don't really understand is the mindset to be one is very different from your conventional 9-to-5 job. Like, I've worked both, so I'm not someone who became some viral teenage millionaire, right? I have worked a full-time job, and I have worked jobs throughout my life, so I understand the difference. And I would say YouTube is a far easier job than like most real jobs, right? But at the same time, it's always on my mind. It's always in my head, and I have to be in the right headspace to make content. I have to be having my schedule, especially with someone who has OCD, have my schedule, get in the right headspace. Even today, I've been bed rotting because I've been so busy, and I was like, should I even make a video? I'm not in the right headspace. But you have to design your life so you can perform on camera, right? And that often involves, like, you know, I can't go see you today. And even though in theory I would have time to do this video, what will happen is I'll get back from going out and my social battery will be down here and I won't make it. So I'm going to prioritize this because it's my livelihood and it's my own schedule, my own structure. But also, just like when you're starting out of YouTube, when it's your full-time job and you're trying to play catch up with work you've missed, it just feels like the amount of hours you can sink into this is basically infinite. Like, it feels like you can never make enough. And that comes with like wanting more money or more social media fame. For me, it's just trying to make a stable income. That's my like obsession with pushing myself. Like, I am passionate about what I do. At the same time, when it becomes a full-time job, you do have to force yourself to actually be consistent with these uploads and everything. And from my own experience, I just feel like it does fundamentally make you antisocial, even when you can completely design your schedule. Now, when I worked full-time, I burnt myself out basically doing it because obviously I was a Marxist before I actually joined the full-time workforce when I was like 23 after doing my master's degree. I was committed to not letting work become my life. I didn't want my personality to be just you work at this job you don't like. So I kept doing my football, which is something I love as well. And I'd have football training. I think I'd have football training on a Wednesday, a football match on a Monday, like five-a-side match, and then a game on Saturday. And I'd also, on the Tuesday and Thursday, I'd record YouTube videos and I'd work out, which resulted in me getting little sleep and probably like 4.5 hours a night because I was prioritizing YouTube, not out of a sense of I have to do this because I want something. It's more like my identity is not my job. I love doing YouTube. I love talking about politics. I love talking about history. I don't want to give that up for work, even though I feel like work is kind of pulling me in that direction because I want more free time. So basically, I forgoed my mental health, physical health, sleep. Don't do this for everyone. To pursue YouTube more. And again, that is time I could be relaxing, seeing friends. I didn't give up my hobby, but I understand why you would give up your physical sporting hobby to do YouTube instead. And again, it's a very solitary thing of I am just going to work on this on my own, on the side. No community really. Don't have much like friends in the space and everything. It's just me doing this. And take this to like a different conclusion, right? So I was working full time and it took up a lot of my after hours. But say you're a teenager, say you're Mr. Beast, and you're obsessed with going viral. You're obsessed with just being viral. Like, that is it. That's all you care about. That's all you want. And probably what goes with that, fame and power. Mr. Beast started his channel when he was like 16, kept doing these viral stunts to become insanely wealthy, right? And you can ask yourselves a question: does content creation fundamentally draw in the worst of us? Like, I'm not saying most content creators are all terrible people, but I'm saying most successful content creators don't seem to be good people. And I think it draws in the obsessive, it draws in the power hungry, it draws in the fame hungry, who will literally do anything like Mr. Beast to become a famous YouTuber, to become a famous streamer. Combined with that, they got their success when they're really young. Out of everyone you've ever met in your life, including yourself, how many 18-year-old kids would be totally normal people with very good social awareness and empathy if you made them world famous and dumped millions of dollars into their lap to spend as they wanted? You see this with celebrities all the time. You can say to yourself, like I say to myself, if that was me, I would be the same, because I recognize myself in my 18-year-old self, but I can't even guarantee that, right? Because that would mess anyone up. So when you take Mr. Beast and you see everything that came out last year and just how he treats people and how he treats people generally, it's like, this is a guy who does not know how to treat human beings because he just hasn't had that life experience as an adult. And like I was saying with me, I started doing YouTube when I was 21 and I became moderately successful when I was 25. But I'm so grateful I've had the life experience to mature and appreciate YouTube as like a job where I can have more time to live my life that I enjoy, right? Rather than, oh my God, like I really want to get really famous quickly. I really want loads of money. I really want loads of fame. And I'm going to just, pursue that at all costs. And then I get successful at like 18. And then I don't realize how the world works, because there's something about getting older. You just don't, I think generally, you just don't care about that sort of thing as much. But also, I've had so many interactions with real people, and that can be in dynamics like, okay, you're at a workplace, you're not in charge. There are responsibilities you have to other people you work with to make sure they don't have to do loads. You're not the boss. And pivoting into that as well, what content creation does to people is the power and ego trip, because you're the boss of your own little empire. And this is for me as well. And every YouTuber and content creator who gets moderately successful, they have that temptation. You have the temptation of knowing you can influence people. You can, and let's say, for example, with your own audiences, right? You can weaponize your own audience to make sure that if there's any criticism against you, they can go attack the people criticizing you because they like you so much, even if the criticism is perfectly valid. And we've seen that a lot on left-wing YouTube in regards to, people like the Lolicon Enjoyer. Like, no matter what he does, he has legions of people who defend everything he does because he's got that audience and because he has purposefully cultivated this power dynamic where these people, like legions of people, will defend him no matter what. Because that's the temptation. Do you turn your audience into this attack dog who will stay loyal to you no matter what? And here's the thing, most YouTubers know they can do this to their audience because it's all based on how you cultivate an audience. It's all based on how you project your personality. So even with me, you have that temptation. I know I do not have an audience like that because I've purposefully stayed away from drama. I've purposefully stayed away from calling out most other creators. I've done it on occasion. I'm not saying I'm above it, but I don't make my content like some sort of drama farm where it's like me against someone else all the time. So take my side or take their side. And I think what that does, you see that with like Lolicon, Destiny, loads of political streamers, even Hassan's audience, even though I don't think he's terrible for this, I've, criticised him myself and got this backlash. What it does is basically shield you from consequences on top of you already running this, your own business and channel where there aren't really any bosses. You have YouTube and Twitch, sure, but they're so hands off. It's basically your own mini empire. And you can really design that however you want. It's the ultimate form of control, really. Someone who has OCD, like, that's what I want, but I am not giving into a temptation to make my audience there for me no matter how badly I could fuck up in the future. But on top of that as well, with this power dynamic, there's the temptation to take advantage of the fame and the access that gives you to people, right? So I've been in a long-term relationship, 12 and a half years. Girlfriend has obviously featured on the channel and stuff, and I have never been dating while doing my YouTube channel, but I can't talk from that perspective of having like relationships with fans. And I also think maybe in certain contexts there isn't anything wrong with a YouTuber having a relationship with someone who might have found them through being a fan of their content. I also personally, I know myself, I wouldn't like that dynamic. I wouldn't like that power dynamic, and I would feel like pretty gross about it, but you know that that is a temptation for any creator. And also as a creator, I'm sure many people can relate if they are creators, you get messages from loads of people saying thirsty things, right? And it basically comes from anyone. You could use the power dynamic of the platform you've like amassed to basically pursue someone with the power dynamic overwhelmingly in your favor. And again, that's another temptation. You could do this, and you could easily do this. And as we've seen, it is successful for people in getting in these relationships. Most of the people who've ever done this are massive pieces of shit, though. And you've seen that, you know, like the Destiny scandal right now and how he's treated women and loads of other people who've done this. It seemed like every time there's a scandal on YouTube, like I Am Alex, it comes from this insane power dynamic that they cultivate and then they bring into their relationship, where it goes from you are controlling your audience and weaponizing your audience and cultivating this audience to you are bringing that mindset over into an actual relationship where you want your partner to basically act as if they're your audience, and you're above criticism, you're above them really, you know, saying bad things about you because that's the audience you've cultivated as well. It's a really toxic thing. I think you can't really understand unless you're in the position yourself where you can understand that, okay, people send me thirsty messages all the time. If I was single and I wanted to pursue a relationship with that man or that woman or whatever, I could respond and use the power dynamic I have where they like me already and they have this version of me that they've invented that they really like that isn't, you know, the reality, and I can exploit that for my own gain, essentially. And that is the example I was talking about at the start with the leftist creator I read about recently who has been doing that. That kind of access, I think, does draw people in. I'm not saying most pieces of shit content creators go into it thinking, I am going to use this for sexual access to whoever, but I do think that just comes part and parcel with the power that you're going to amass through becoming a content creator. So if you become some sort of obsessive trying to make it on YouTube or Twitch and you just pour in so much time and energy to becoming this like antisocial monster because you want this power, it probably goes with it that you want this power to have access to people much easier. And also, what you often see of this as well is because they've been so antisocial in the run-up to achieving this power, they also just don't know how to treat anyone. Friends, relationships, they're just terrible with all of this because they're so emotionally stunted from living in the Peter Pan fantasy world that is being a content creator from, you know, your teenage years to being an adult where you've been successful the whole time. Just on like the last note, so we have all these elements, and I think also what I've spoken about just there can corrupt people. So I think in these two kind of case studies, I think people could just be corrupted by the power of being a large content creator and then just giving in to the temptation. Give in to the temptation that you can manipulate your audience to do what you want. Give in to the temptation to respond to the thirsty DMs and maybe just pursue these people for sexual access, which has become increasingly easy for you because of your power dynamic with these people, and your principles and integrity that you thought you had is just compromised because when you're faced with this reality of look how easy it can be for you, you just jump right into it and you're like, okay, fuck it, I'm going to do this. And it doesn't matter what your political beliefs, you've seen this across the political spectrum where people have done this and it leads often to terrible outcomes. So one more thing I want to say is we talked about kind of like, you know, people becoming bad or the bad parts of being a content creator, and that's more like politically neutral. Now I want to talk about like actually being like a piece of shit. And Asmongold is probably the best example of this. Someone who kind of has all these elements anyway, is extremely antisocial. I think most streamers are extremely antisocial because you have to be on camera so much of the day. It's not like even being a YouTuber, where for me, this week, this video is all I've recorded. This is me on camera for the week. And even the week before where I made 5 videos, what's that like? Maybe 3 hours of content I recorded or something, compared to like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or maybe even more. Like the amount of time you have to be dedicating to this job where you can't be flexible. Like you can't just go leave and do something. Not like me where I'll be editing a video, then I'll go to football, that's like 2 hours and a half or whatever, come back, finish. It's like I can organize my schedule around the video editing and recording. When you're a streamer, you can't do that. And there's so many memes about Asmongold basically living in his own filth and stuff like that. And in that, his whole world is just Twitter. His whole world is Twitter. Like, what actual engagement does he have with anyone? You cannot even fit in much engagement when you're online so much. But all he's doing is responding to this, sycophantic audience, reading stuff on Twitter, everyone saying either terrible shit about him, which is often very well deserved, or just praising him for all his like anti-woke takes and stuff. So that's how you get to the level of this guy, who I don't think was ever a good guy, but if you showed him maybe 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe when he was younger, a video of him saying all that terrible shit about the Palestinians when they're facing their own extermination, I'm assuming he would probably be surprised by that, I guess, right? But even in this content creation space, he just feels so enabled to actually say something like that and feel okay about it. And there was actually an interesting video he uploaded afterwards, seemingly not very sincere, but he talked about how this road he's going down has made him a worse person. And he could have been honest, right, in that assessment, but then he goes right back to saying the same shit, like when he comes back on stream. So it's pretty clear he is just this piece of shit who is enabled by the platform to be as terrible as possible, because at the end of the day, that seems to be what is being rewarded in his personal case. So when I see all these content creators, I'm like, why is everyone such a bad person who seems to be popular? I guess you can look at it through various different like lenses. Like with Asmongold, it's like, okay, it's the Trump era, fascism is on the rise, saying all this stuff to loads of like normies or whatever, or centre-right people. Loads of people are going to love that because you're exposing them to this really, really toxic racism, and it's one of the most popular streamers or whatever. So you enjoy that on that element. But I still think on the personal element, antisocial, whole world is online, very successful from doing this, and you're just constantly rewarded with money, fame, power by acting this way. He has shown that there's basically no consequences to what you say, even if it's insane, and you'll still get rewarded, right? So if he wants to keep being successful, why would he stop? And that's the main problem with that sort of thing. With all these piece of shit content creators, like Aiden Ross, or just all these far-right creators as well, like Sneeko, and like the Manosphere, why would you stop? If you purely only care about like monetary gain or fame and stuff, you're just going to be rewarded. So you might as well do it. And again, that's another temptation of you can just indulge all your worst impulses as a content creator. And in our current creator economy, it seems like that is just completely rewarded. And there is no consequences. There is no version of you being deplatformed really, unless you really get on the wrong side of certain creators that seem to dominate. It does feel like there are no consequences, because if you do a lot of these things, like cultivate an insanely toxic audience, like let's say the Lolicon Enjoyer, Destiny, Asmongold, are people ever going to leave? There's always going to be a significant group that are going to stay and prop you up forever. And you've shown that by just being terrible and acting terrible with people, and acting terrible in either your personal relationships with your audience, how you've treated other content creators, or what you've said about political subjects. It just seems like there's no consequences. So I once said that content creation actually reminds me of like the Catholic Church, in that it seems to just draw in like terrible people, like to become heads of these institutions. And again, most of us content creators, like I would say, are just average people. And we shouldn't be put on a pedestal. We shouldn't be like, treated as though we're inherently better than anyone else because you like our YouTube videos. What it is we have things that we say that you like and you think are interesting or you agree with, and we just happen to have the capacity to say it on camera. That's the main difference, right, between a lot of us, is some people can't talk on camera, some people can talk on camera, and lots of things that I'm saying obviously are unique to me, but again, other people could fill the space I occupy on the internet right now. And I feel like that for a lot of people, this is just a very normal hobby to do. And most people these days are some form of content creator, like whatever they post on Instagram or even on YouTube. But I also feel at the same time, getting to the higher echelons of content creation does draw in the most terrible personalities who then succeed because they have these terrible qualities. In a way, it does resemble just general capitalist society. And of course, politics. To get to the top, you have to be the most ruthless. You have to have like no integrity, no principles, or flexible integrity and principles. And you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to attain this thing, right? And there might be like multiple motivations there, but then it's not surprising that people who often, have some sort of lacking in morals will then start treating people like shit once they have the power to do whatever they want. It honestly becomes like, if you're an e-celeb, you're like a mini lord of your own kingdom where you can just do whatever the fuck you want. But I also believe, on another point, there's a lot of temptation that comes with power. A lot of temptation that comes in terms of how you like cultivate audiences or even your own personal relationships with people because of the power dynamic. And I do firmly believe that a lot of people who might have lived their entire life treating people perfectly fine, perfectly normal and stuff, get corrupted by that temptation and power and then start treating people terribly because they realize how easy this has made certain things that often you had to put either like a lot of work into, or you just had to treat people on the same level. Because if you meet someone, for example, in the dating scene, you're equals. If you meet someone who is a fan of your YouTube channel that has millions of subs, you're not going to be equal in that dynamic. And I think it's very rare that a couple could be formed out of that dynamic and sustain themselves without having issues in the future with that power dynamic. So anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Give me any examples you're thinking of. A bit of a rambly one again. It's the one-shot video. Few edits here and there, but not too much. So let me know what you think of the format. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.